Just have to find the right paper. There's the right paper. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gord Perks. I am the chair of the Planning and Housing Committee. We have quorum. I am now calling meeting 24 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room 1. This meeting is also being live streamed at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Planning and Housing Committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Planning and Housing Committee page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at phc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, may I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on July 15th? Councillor Nunziata. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. I understand there are new business items. Oh, yeah, there are some new business items that, no, I'm the wrong place. Oh yeah, it's the agenda rundown. Sorry, guys. Okay. All right, PH 24.1, 85 Hanna and 109 Atlantic Avenue, OPA decision report. We have speakers. PH 24.2, amendments to zoning bylaw 569/2013 relating to accessible and bike parking requirements for new developments. It's statutory. I don't see any speakers listed. Are there any members of the public who wish to depute on this item? Seeing none, does anyone?
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 24.3, major transit station areas and protected major transit station areas and inclusionary zoning implementation status update and work plan. We're going to hold that. PH 24.4, 21 to 31 Windsor Street, 18 Buckingham Street, 60 Newcastle Street, and 95 Portland Street. Designation of a municipal shelter as a municipal capital facility. Does anyone wish to hold that? No? I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 24.5, 2 College Street, area specific amendment to the sign bylaw. Do we have deputants on that? No? Does anyone want to hold that? Okay, I'm going to move the staff recommendation to refuse. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 24.6, 3 Bestobell Road, area specific amendment to the sign bylaw. I don't have any deps listed on that. Anyone wish to hold it? No, I'll move the staff recommendation to refuse. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 24.7, 496 Evans Avenue, area specific amendment to the sign bylaw. I have no deputants. Does anyone wish to hold it? No, I'll move the staff recommendation to refuse. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 24.9, 134 Carlton Street, notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario. I missed 8. I am not a competent chair. Okay. PH 24.8, 1151 Weston Road, notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. PH 24.9, 134 Carlton Street, notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I have no deputants. Does anyone wish to hold it? No. I'll move the staff recommendation. All those in favor, opposed, carried. PH 2410, 207, 209, 211, 213, 215, 217, and 219 Jarvis Street. Notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Anyone wish to hold it? I'll move it. Councillor Nunziata moves it. All those in favor, opposed, carried. And we just received the Preservation Board?
They're all adopt. You don't need to do
Don't need to do anything? Yeah, okay. PH 2411, 336, 340, 342 through 344 Jarvis Street. Notice of intention to designate properties under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Anyone wish to hold it? No? I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. PH 2412, 506, 510, and 512 Jarvis Street. Notice of intention to designate properties under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Anyone wish to hold that? No? I'll move the staff recommendations. PH 2413, property included on the city's Heritage Register, consideration of objection for 1771 Bayview Avenue and 36 Greenville Road. I have deputants listed there. And PH 2414, comprehensive review of the sign bylaw and establishing a Portland special sign district. This is a letter from Councillor Fletcher. Anyone want to hold that? No? I'll move the recommendations in Councillor Fletcher's letter. PH 2415, open and accessible in-person public transit-oriented community open houses. Again, it's a letter from Councillor Fletcher.
These are on the agenda, so you can move to adopt both of them.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't hear the call for 14. I didn't hear you call for 14 and vote on 14.
On item 14, all those in favor, opposed, carried. On item 15, Councillor Fletcher's letter, I'll move the recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. That's the kind of agenda rundown I like to see. Okay. What have we got left now? Item 1, 85 Hanna and 109 Atlantic Avenue. We have a deputant listed, Ryan Doherty. Ryan, hi Ryan, welcome. So Ryan, you've got 5 minutes. You can start when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for allowing me to speak. My name is Ryan Doherty. I'm a land use planner with Bousfields, agent to the applicant. Just wanted to be here to say that we are in support of the staff recommendations and would be happy to answer any questions of the applicant. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ryan, for that incisive deputation. I'm going to quietly grind my teeth.
So I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Francis is going to move the recommendations.
Councillor Francis?
Councillor Francis. We're feeling relaxed this morning. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. I just gave the planners a good laugh there. Okay. Major transit station areas and protected major transit station areas and inclusionary zoning implementation status update and work plan. I am desperate to understand this better, so I want staff to present some information on this. Yep. I wish they were all like this, Jag. I wish they were all like this. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, good morning, Chair and members of Council and members of the public. My name is Jason Thorne, Chief Planner and Executive Director of City Planning, and what I thought I'd do this morning is just do a very quick overview presentation of the report that you have in front of you related to major transit station areas and inclusionary zoning. And I'll start with just a quick background as to what MTSAs are. The provincial policy requires all municipalities to delineate in our official plans both major transit station areas, you'll hear us refer to MTSAs, and protected major transit station areas, which we'll refer to as PMTSAs. A major transit station area is generally defined as an area with an approximate 500 to 800 meter radius of an existing or planned higher order transit station area, representing approximately a 10-minute walk. To be clear, this is higher order transit station area, so this is subways, LRTs, GO Transit, not just individual bus stops. The province sets out minimum density requirements that must be achieved around those areas. And then there's something called a protected major transit station area. These are the PMTSAs. These are a subset of MTSAs, and they have some additional provincial requirements in that we have to identify specific densities within those PMTSAs. These are also the areas to which the province permits us to apply inclusionary zoning, and I'll speak about that in a moment. So Council did its work to adopt 105 PMTSAs and 29 MTSAs back between 2020 and 2022, but they do require provincial approval. So they have been with the minister since that time, and we received that approval a few weeks ago on August 15th, 2025. So the minister issued a decision approving 95 of those PMTSAs and 25 of the MTSAs. The minister withheld decision on a few, primarily related to where there are transit-oriented community discussions underway. The minister's decision is final, so it doesn't require council approval or council endorsement, and there's not a transition period. So those new policies, or the new policies that I'll describe in a moment, are in force and effect in our official plan as of August the 15th. This is a map showing where they are. This map is included in the staff report, is up on the city website as well. And you'll see on this map, the yellow dots are the protected major transit station areas, and the white ones are the major transit station areas, and the lines show the boundaries around them. I'll highlight some of the key policies the minister has approved and put in place for these areas. Within lands designated neighborhoods, so within those transit station areas, there's different land use designations, neighborhoods, mixed use, apartment areas, regeneration areas, so there's different provisions for each. Within the lands designated neighborhoods, these policies now permit apartment buildings up to 6 stories in height if you're within 200 meters of the station, or if you're on one of the city identified major streets within those areas. Elsewhere within neighborhoods outside of those first 2 bullets, multiplexes and apartment buildings are permitted up to 4 stories in height. That's the neighborhoods. Within lands that are designated mixed use areas, apartment neighborhoods, or regeneration areas, the minister's decision includes 2 policies. One is that there's a permission of 8 FSI or more if you're within 200 meters, and 6 FSI or more if you're within 200 to 500 meters of the transit station. So I'll explain a little bit on the next slide what is meant by FSI, because you'll see that throughout the minister's decision. FSI stands for Floor Space Index. It is a way of measuring density. That's a measure of the gross floor area of all the buildings on a lot divided by the lot area. So what these images show here on the right is an empty lot, which of course would be an FSI of 0, and then 3 different ways of achieving the same density of FSI of 1. So it could be a single-story building on 100% of the lot, a 2-story building on half the lot, or a 4-story building on 25% of the lot, and so on. So you'll see in the policies, this is the density measure that the provincial decision has used. Continuing on some of the key policies, the minister's decision includes some specific policies as it relates to larger sites. These are sites that can accommodate 3 or more towers. Within those sites, the official plan now includes policies that allow for building heights up to 30 stories within 200 meters
and 20 stories within 200 to 500 meters. It does provide for additional height beyond that, but that is subject to the submission of a block context plan, and that's where we would look at things like new public streets, new parks, new privately accessible open spaces, mid-block connections, those types of things. And then there are also some special policy areas within those provisions, because there are some areas within our transit station areas that, for example, are subject to floodplain regulations or hazard regulations, and so that is acknowledged within the policies. So as I said, these policies are now exist and are now in force and effect within our official plan. The city must now update its zoning bylaw to implement those new official plan policies. The Planning Act requires the municipalities amend their zoning bylaws within 1 year of the policies coming into effect. And if that is done, those aspects of the zoning that are implementing the minister's policies are sheltered from appeal. I would note that we also, when the minister provided his decision to the city, included a request that that zoning be implemented within 9 months. So the report that you have in front of you, city staff are targeting Q2 of 2026 to report back to council with that implementing zoning, and that will come before you for approval. The report talks a little bit about the general zoning approach that we will take. In the interest of moving quickly, the approach we'll be looking at is to do the zoning as an overlay approach across all of the different station areas, and to focus just on those zoning amendments that are necessary to implement the minister's approved MTSA policies. The report will also speaks to consultation. So in addition to the minimum consultation required, which would include a statutory meeting in front of this committee, staff will be hosting some additional consultation opportunities before we bring those amendments forward. We'll be creating a study webpage. We'll be providing communications to residents associations and key stakeholders. We'll also be hosting a public open house in each of the community council districts. I'll turn now to a couple of slides about inclusionary zoning. Council adopted inclusionary zoning back in November of 2021. That inclusionary zoning policy required 5 to 10% affordable housing, depending on which market area you were in, with a phased increase over time, eventually getting to 8% or 22%, depending on where you are, and a 99-year affordability period. These policies could not be implemented until the minister approved the PMTSAs. On May 12th, 2025, so earlier this year, the province issued a new regulation that essentially capped what municipalities can require with respect to inclusionary zoning. That cap is 5% of residential units or of the gross floor area of the residential units. And the province also capped the inclusionary zoning period at 25 years rather than the council adopted 99 years. So now, as of August 15th, with the minister approving the PMTSAs, that means that inclusionary zoning is now in effect within those PMTSAs, but capped at the provincial rate. So capped at the rate of 5% affordability for 25 years. This map is also in the staff report. The blue area is the originally defined council-approved inclusionary zoning market area. So inclusionary zoning applies as of now to all of the PMTSAs, the yellow dots on this map, within that blue inclusionary zoning market area. It's 89 of the 95 PMTSAs fall within that area. So although inclusionary zoning is now in effect, as I said, it came in effect upon the minister's adoption of the PMTSAs on August the 15th. Both the province as well as the city have included a number of exemptions and transition provisions. There are a number of them listed on this slide. So already exempt from inclusionary zoning are any developments proposing fewer than 100 units or 8,000 square meters of residential gross floor area. So this is generally a mid-rise housing. A mid-rise housing type is generally going to be exempt from inclusionary zoning as a result of that provision. Exempted are not-for-profit housing developments, student residence, retirement homes, nursing homes, residential care homes. There's also a transition provision for applications already in progress. So developments that have already submitted a complete zoning bylaw amendment application or site plan application prior to that minister's date of August the 15th are exempt. And at the time of adopting the inclusionary zoning, council also approved an exemption for purpose-built rental homes. So as a result of all those various transitions and exemptions, about 98% of the current development pipeline is not subject to inclusionary zoning. So it generally is going to apply only on a go-forward basis. Also of note here on the right-hand side of this slide, there are some financial incentives that have been put in place. Inclusionary zoning units, the affordable units themselves, are exempt from community benefits charges. They're exempt from DCs. They're exempt from parkland requirements. Council also, back when they adopted inclusionary zoning, the inclusionary zoning bylaw approved an additional incentive that froze DCs on the market units at the DC rates that were in place in the time, which is about 25% lower than the current DC rates. On that last bullet, I would note that the exemption related to purpose-built rental is due to expire on January the 1st. At the time that that exemption was adopted, that was a 5-year period, but of course it's taken a while for those policies to come into effect. So we do note in the staff report that that's something we expect needing to come forward to council on as to whether or not that purpose-built rental exemption should be extended. So the report that you have in front of you outlines a couple of things. As I noted, the minister's decision on the OP policies for MTSAs is final. That doesn't require council approval endorsement. What the report in front of you outlines is it provides an overview about what is now in those policies and what was in the minister's decision, our proposed work program for doing the implementing zoning, and also an overview of what those in effect inclusionary zoning policies include. So thank you, Chair. That is my overview.
Thank you. We'll go to questions after the deputants. If I can just find my list. We have 4 deputants listed. First is Aaron Ginsberg. Aaron, I understand you're online. Are you with us?
I am.
Hi, Aaron. Welcome. You've got
Morning, Mr.
5
Chair.
minutes.
How
You
are
can start when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Very excited to debut this morning. My name is Aaron Ginsberg. I'm a volunteer for More Neighbors Toronto. We are, as I said, very excited to see this report come forward. It's been a long time coming. We congratulate the mayor and staff and the premier and his staff on a successful negotiation. And we, as I said, we're very excited to see the report in front of you come forward. This is a big day because it starts to do something very important, which is restore equity to our growth plan. For a long time, growth in the city of Toronto has been concentrated in a few small pockets, downtown, midtown, where I am, North York, Scarborough, and it hasn't been inclusive across the city. I've heard from various councillors, especially suburban councillors, that, oh, we can't accommodate growth in parts of the city because there's no good transit, which is a fair comment. This policy, which has been in place for the provincial government for a long time, is designed to bridge that gap. It says, hey, where there is good transit, whether it's downtown or in the inner suburbs, we need to have the appropriate density to support that transit and to encourage people to live where there is good transit so that we're not having everyone driving in our city because the traffic is bad enough. So this is a really important step to spread out that growth. Not only geographically, but within those growth areas, if you go up to Yonge and Eglinton, or if you're in my area, there's a lot of development in apartment neighborhoods. There's a lot of development in mixed-use neighborhoods. There's very little development in our neighborhoods, capital N neighborhoods. And this starts to change that by allowing 6-story apartments within 200 meters of transit, and also going up to 4 stories instead of the current 3 throughout the major transit station area. It will hopefully allow us to have some of that missing middle housing in the neighborhoods that the city's been trying to achieve through things like multiplexes and garden suites and laneway suites and all the policies that have come forward before this. So this is really a continuation of something that council's been doing for a number of years now. And I think this is a really good next step. There was a plan at one point for transition zones. I think this pretty much covers it. I don't know if staff is still going to move forward with that report or not, but this pretty much covers the idea of the transition zones. So it's well aligned with existing council policy. The only negative comment we have is this isn't complete. It didn't really matter for the last 3 years because we've been waiting for the minister's signature, but there are several MTSAs and PMTSAs that don't have maps approved by council. And now that we have a framework in place in terms of what the province wants to see, it should be very easy to get those done. Most of those maps have been published either through reports to council where there was a proposed map brought forward, or through public consultations. But we need to move forward and get those maps done. There is, if you look at the list in our letter, and I refer you to our letter in terms of, for just our general comments on this. If you look at the list in our letter, you'll notice a pattern. There's 3 MTSAs in Forest Hill. There's another one on the Kingsway. I don't want to notice that pattern, but I do. And I would encourage us to not have a policy that doesn't apply to the richest neighborhoods in the city. That's all I'll say on that. There's no reason to not move forward at this point. It didn't really matter. We weren't complaining for the last 3 years because it was on the minister's desk, so who cared? But now it does. Let's finish the work, and there's no reason that we couldn't bring forward those last few MTSAs in conjunction with the report back that's specified in this report. The last comment I'll make in terms of the work plan, it's very important that we treat this as what it is, which is a conformity exercise with the official plan approved by the minister. All we're doing is taking the zoning that we have and making sure it matches the official plan. That's it. This is not a time for new regulation. This is not a time for creating extra steps to get housing built. This is all about, let's make sure our zoning matches our official plan. So I support staff in their efforts to do that, and I hope council will as well. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Chair. It's a very exciting day, and we're very happy to see this move forward.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions? No, seeing none. Aaron, thank you so much for your deputation.
Thank you.
Next, I have listed Linda Brett. Hi, Linda.
Have a possibility of sitting on the floor.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. I am Secretary of Fontra and President of my local neighborhood association, the Bloor Street East Neighborhood Association, which is entirely within a PMTSA area with 3 subway stations within our footprint. I'm here today to ask you not just to receive this report at committee level, to move it to the full council for the discussion of the implications of the province's response. It should not stay here. It should not just go into the staff reporting, et cetera. Councillors are one of the methods of communication to their residents, and leaving the implications of this to the committee and staff public meetings is disservice to all the residents of Toronto. The approval amendments by the province are broad in context, therefore it requires a more political response, while at the same time allowing the staff to go ahead with the work plan as described in the staff report. In tandem, I request the committee to direct staff through a motion to work towards a more creative ways to mitigate the impact on affordable housing as contemplated in the submission and deputation of John Bossons. We're at the top of the red zone of a crisis of affordable housing. In fact, we're past the red zone. I don't know where you go past red. This cannot wait for the private sector to carry the load and in hopes that they will do this with these zoning bylaws, either in the short or long term. Our shelter system is full. We have a serious opioid and homeless crisis with minimal solutions before us. BINA will be considering our response to a significant increase in the amount and severity of vandalism, homelessness, open drug use in the area, and have a request that I have with me to join stakeholders of all types to work to a larger community response, and not a negative one, but in a positive way. We have winter coming and our house is full. In fact, I had a conversation with city workers in my area a couple of weeks ago, and they said even if they found a homeless person, they had nothing to offer accommodation within the shelter system. I note this is serious, significant increase in vandalism, et cetera, coincides with the closure of the safe consumption sites. And the request I have before me, which is going to our committee tonight, talks about, yes, we have had this crisis and we have been in this for years, but the increase in the last 6 months is really gotten to a really critical area, especially in the downtown east and probably in other areas of the city. The province's response to inclusionary zoning is inadequate and deserves more visibility than simply a report to this committee. Restricting where it can be placed, maximum amount, and 25-year term is inadequate. If the city accepts this, then they have to find other ways, which is why John's submission requires serious consideration. One of the other areas that deserves further discussion is the removal of parking requirements in their entirety. The current bylaw allows for minimum allowances for guest parking to accommodate trades and minimal guests. The province's emphasis on active transportation, in particular internal cycling infrastructure and developments along our major corridors, directly contradicted the province's endeavors to remove our cycling lanes. Again, I urge this committee to move this to council with motions to support the ideas coming forward to committee today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No? Thank you so much for your deputation today. Jeff Cattell. Whenever you're ready, Jeff.
Excuse me. I'm Jeff Cattell. I'm speaking on behalf of Federation of North Toronto Resident Associations, FONTRA, on this particular item. Dear Chair and members of committee, as you know, we try and bring an informed and coordinated perspective on the city's land use and transportation issues affecting neighborhoods and the wider city. We believe that Toronto can and should achieve better development. In that regard, we wish to express our major concerns with this report, which recommends that it be received for information only. Our high-level concerns with the report include the following. It represents a blind response by the provincial government, overreaching over the City of Toronto to address an issue which is not identified, offering a response not justified by the province or the city as either necessary or appropriate. The report fails to assess how the mandated density policies will override existing policies, the OPAs, and have potential but unexamined implications for many other city policies and priorities, such as heritage, tree cover, transportation, parking. The inclusive zoning, PMTSA component, its very low percentage of affordable housing, the severely shortened time frame represent a major backsliding from what the city back in 2001 considered appropriate. And the report proposes that the city, but without consulting City Council, adopt the provincial time frame for implementation, which means that public involvement is limited to being told, which is not public consultation. We believe that the report offends both good land use planning, quote unquote, and good governance. It's not good enough for the report to be received for information only. It needs to be subject to review, discussion, debate at City Council, not buried at this committee. Representing neighborhoods in North Toronto, FONTRA is well aware of the increasing phenomenon of high-rise applications being submitted in neighborhood designated lands outside the areas officially designated for dense development as a result of city planning process. For example, in Bayview, Eglinton area, there are now applications for high-rise development being submitted in areas beyond the Bayview focus area, which was designated to OPA 405 in response to higher order transit development, the Eglinton Crosstown. The area will now be under even greater pressure due to the MTSA policies and the associated circle radii. As such, we recommend that the report be forwarded to City Council, not received for information, and that PHC, Planning and Housing, recommend to City Council that staff be directed to develop policies to address the need to respond to the impact of site-specific zoning bylaw and official plan amendments for large development applications in neighborhood designated lands within MTSAs that address the concerns such as height, transition, heritage protection, parking for service providers, park space, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeff? No? Jeff, thank you so much. Savo Bozic? Oh, sorry. Am I on the wrong list? I'm on the wrong list. John Bossons. Sorry, Jeff's name appears multiple times in our deputants list, so that. Hi, John. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yes, I'm on. Okay. I'm here really in two capacities, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm a citizen, obviously, of Toronto. And secondly, I'm also an economist. I want to talk in both capacities. Starting with the first, if there's anything that one could say about this, we have to ask, is it smart planning? What's smart planning? It's what makes a city great. It recognizes that, there's variety in a city, that it's not appropriate to just have one size fits all, regardless of location. What is before us? It's essentially a diktat. This is Third Reich style governing. We fortunately do not live in a dictatorship, but this is what was done in the Third Reich. Take away the powers of local governments. That's a serious issue. And, if there's anything that one should take away from this, it's the fact that we desperately need a city charter, something which allows cities the power to control what happens in their city. Agreed, there are provincial interests. Creating housing is a national priority, but so is trying to make a city livable. Let me turn to the economic issues. What will this accomplish? Will it achieve a lot more housing? Well, let's look at the applications pipeline. We have enough approvals, developments already approved or in the process of getting approved in the development pipeline to be able to handle a population increase of that, at least when the last development pipelines report came out, was enough to handle the anticipated growth of the city to 2050. We do not have a shortage of approved developments. Our problem is developments are not getting built, and our problem is that the developments that were being built, primarily condos, were based on an economic model that could only be called a speculative boom. What will this do? Will it provide affordable housing? Unlikely. I mean, the housing model that the development industry has been following for the last 10 years is based on speculative investors buying units prior to construction. Financing of developments has been based on pre-sales, typically 70% of the units in a building. That's not going to happen. Speculative investors have been badly burnt. As anybody knows who's following the housing industry, the condo market has collapsed, and that's not going to recover very quickly. In the 1990s, it took 5 to 10 years to recover from the excesses of a speculative boom. The kind of speculation, et cetera, was different, but this is pretty much the standard economic paradigm. When you have a speculative boom, there's a crash, and it typically takes some considerable period of time for expectations to recover, for speculators to start feeling that it's worth speculating again. I mean, it's like your kid putting a hand on a hot stove element. The kid quickly learns the first time that that's not a good idea. and doesn't go back to repeat that mistake. Speculative investors are in the same position. They're not going to repeat the mistake that they made. So what's going to be built by the private sector? Basically, the only thing that's likely to get built in volume is low-rise housing in neighborhoods, which will be built by smaller contractors, smaller developers, and high-rise rental units aimed at high-income people that are downsizing as homeowners. That's not affordable housing that we need for the bottom half of the population, for people with below median incomes. Our desperate need is for social housing, and that's not going to be provided by this. So I repeat what has been said before.
Thank you, John.
This really is an urgent issue, not just because of what it does to city planning,
John,
but what it does to
thank
the
you.
city. I would urge you to take this to council and make this an issue that the city fights on.
Thank you. Are there any questions for John? Nope, seeing none. Thank you so much. That completes the deputations. Are there any questions of staff?
Mr. Chair.
Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the presentation, there was a description that the geofence of the MTSAs and the PMTSAs are 500 to 800 meters or a 10-minute walk. Can staff describe which of those it is and what process the province used to validate the city's submission forward that it does meet those parameters?
So through you, Chair, those metrics are a guidance that the province gives to municipalities, and then based on that guidance, the municipalities delineate the boundaries for each of the station areas. That's the exercise that City Council would have done 4 or 5 years ago. In what was submitted to the province and the decision that came out from the minister, there were no changes to those boundaries. So the province's decision speaks to the densities within those boundaries, but both to the external boundaries of the station area overall, as well as the interior boundaries of the various land use designations. The province did not make any changes to those. I wouldn't be able to speak specifically to any sort of testing or analysis that was done by the province of that. I would just say that the province approved, from a boundary standpoint, what was submitted by the city.
Thank you. Second question, the province prescribed heights of buildings. Those are minimums, correct?
So through the chair, in terms of densities, the density numbers speak to a density or more, and then they specify buildings as well, which are defined typologies of buildings. So I wouldn't speak to a building as being a minimum, but the densities do speak to 6 FSI or more, 8 FSI or more.
How about stories?
So through the chair, on stories, the province has noted again, in neighborhoods, depending where you are, 6 stories for apartments, 4 stories for multiplexes. Within the large sites, I noted those were the ones that had could accommodate 3 buildings or more. The provisions do provide for greater heights, subject to that policy that I noted around preparing a block context plan that would look at circulation, access, design considerations, et cetera.
So we'll get to that in a sec, but is it up to the stories that were prescribed in the language that you put out, or is it maximums or minimums?
So through the chair, it is, I would suggest it is both, it is certainly a minimum in terms of them saying that we shall permit 4 stories. I think if there is a desire to go above that, that is something that would be in the city's purview through the zoning exercise, but the 4 stories would be the minimum that would have to be put in place through the zoning to implement those policies.
So some sites are mixed use. Some may contain retail on the lower floors, might be amenity space that takes up a floor, could be parking, could be mechanical. Are those counted as stories? In other words, are they only looking at the housing stories, or is this about the overall form of the building?
So through the chair, these policy would speak to stories, regardless of what is above grade stories, regardless of what is in those stories.
Thank you. Last question. The language that's in front of me about considering heights that are greater on larger sites and involving a block context plan, appears very broad. It says that the plan would consider a number of things, anything from roads to parks and so on. Is that simply a checklist, or is there some way that that criteria is going to be applied to evaluate the application? In other words, it doesn't tell me a lot about what the end product is going to be. It just opens a lot of doors. Could you give me some assurance about what this means?
Yes, and it is an important point to note, not just with those policies, but with all of the policies that are in the MTSAs, is that the rest of the official plan continues to apply, or in some cases, secondary plans if they fall within a secondary plan area. So those other policies within the OP and secondary plans would speak to matters of design, matters of streetscape, those types of things which would inform the implementation of that block context plan policy.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Councillor Nunziata?
Yes, just to staff, in 2023, I put forward a motion, or maybe it was before that, 2021, to include Mount Dennis, Western Road and Lawrence as part of the report that came to Planning and Housing. And it was never reported back to committee. So can you just give me the status of that and how we're going to move forward on that item?
Yes, through you, Chair. So there were a few PMTSAs and MTSAs that have not yet been submitted to the province. 13 of them. Those are tied to various planning studies that were already in progress. To the councillor's question, Mount Dennis is one of those. I'll ask Romas to speak to the current status of that one.
Through the chair, Mount Dennis secondary plan was completed. The draft boundary was included as part of the consultant's report to that study. Our next step would be, like Jason said, bringing forward a report to planning committee and then council with a site and area specific policy delineating the boundary as well as the minimum density targets that go along with that, and applying the inclusionary zoning as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's it for the questions. Does anyone wish to speak to the item? Councillor Holiday.
Speak, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Before the committee is a helpful package to describe a series of changes. I believe that they are fundamental, impactful. I believe that they are not fully and thoroughly understood by the communities, including the people that live within those geographic boundaries. In fact, they form new nodes, and there may be a couple of tiers within those nodes, following the wisdom that at areas of growth, you would try to step those down towards neighborhoods, but I think the policies are crude. I'm not a member of the committee, and I don't have the privilege to place a motion, but I'll take this opportunity to ask staff in the strongest sense that they use methods to notify the public, which uses plain language, frankly sends a letter to every affected household within these geographic areas to explain what these changes are and how they may be involved in the rezoning process. I think these are really important. They change people's rights. They change people's life experiences, including access to light, air, shadow, parks, amenities, transportation within there, and of course parking, which really affects your day-to-day life if you don't have a parking spot. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chair. I do not want this item to be forgotten, and quite the opposite, that people have the opportunity to learn more about it and how they may become involved. And I think that the city should spend some resources in order to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion as an amendment that we request the Chief Planner, Executive Director, City Planning and Development Review to report to the Planning and Housing Committee in Q2 of 26, early next year, addressing the rise of site-specific zoning bylaw and official plan amendment applications for tall buildings in neighborhood designated lands within the MTSAs, including a review of official plan policies relates to transition urban design, heritage, and build form for tall buildings to ensure compatibility between mixed-use areas and neighborhoods, and include recommendations on future updates to official plan policy as necessary. The point of this is is that while there is a policy coming forward to focus more density, more housing at transit nodes throughout our city, there has not been, to my knowledge, preparatory work to recognize that there aren't just major junctions within those 800 meters or so. There are also neighborhoods, and there are different contexts. And if we do this at neighborhoods, it'll be far more difficult a journey than if we do it with neighborhoods and recognize that there may need to be different rules for different contexts. There needs to be, the word transition is contextual, and it really depends on site-specific discussions that we're having. We're having a big discussion as a city about light density, allowing for multiplexes within neighborhoods. We have not had a conversation with residents about having a 30-40-story tower right next to a house. And I think residents would be understandably very concerned if that were to be the case. And I can tell you in real life right now, that's what's being proposed right now. And we don't have any policy. We're not ready for it. We're reacting to provincial policy. And that's why I'm asking staff to get ahead of this and make sure that we are not simply reacting, but that we actually have a plan that we're putting forward that we can also put in front of developers when they are making their applications. So we discuss with them what our expectations are rather than just react to whatever they decide to propose within the new allowances that the provinces has provided. I'll just add in that same spirit, I've seen this city council along with staff before, assume that a one-size-fits-all uniform plan is just what has to be, and therefore it's going to be proposed that way, and then anyone who has any concerns about that somehow is just fundamentally wrong. I'm not suggesting staff, but that's the politics of it. And where we get into trouble is that then there's a reaction. There's a reaction from communities, there's a reaction from councillors. We saw that with the sixplex debate where it actually goes sideways. And I just think that if we don't do this work well by the time this comes back to council, and we don't bring people in and have those conversations and make sure that we're ready to move forward with really sound policy, we're gonna end up in the same situation. Things will go sideways. We will have an awful debate. It won't be as successful as we want it to be. And that's why I'm just asking staff to do that preparatory work, make sure that there's that genuine engagement with our residents, that there's a real understanding of what transition actually means, what's appropriate, what's reasonable, where affordability, real affordability does play in on this. And I think we can get more buy-in if people, again, feel like things are done with them rather than at them. And that's why I'm moving this motion. And I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any questions of the mover? No? Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the item? No? Okay, so we have Councillor Matlow's motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And the item, pardon me? I thought it directed them to do consultations. Yeah, okay, so that's it. Which means we are moving to our next. What's next? Yes. PH 2413, property included on the city's heritage register, consideration of objection for 1771 Bayview Avenue and 36 Green Valley Road. We have a number of deputants. First is Angie Dornay. Angie, I understand you're online. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Welcome, Angie. You've got 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start as soon as you're ready.
Thank you, sir. I am Angie Dornay, retired English teacher who bought her condo unit in 1996. The vote today pertains to my 1/4 of a fourplex, 20 meters from a major transit node right on a major thoroughfare of Bayview. Those speaking in opposition today don't have 30 years of city planning experience like the one speaker in support who will get the privilege to speak last year. We have simple, superficial, recent learning. So thank you kindly for extending grace to all of us as we navigate today. I've sent a letter with contributions from owners, current and past tenants to each of you. If you haven't read it, each of you, please, respectfully, I ask that this vote be paused until you're up to speed. This process has not felt fair, transparent, or inclusive, but rather inequitable and systemically oppressive, in fact. The inequitable way this listing is being advanced has real consequences for we who live in, rent, love, and maintain our homes. Some individuals directly involved in initiating, supporting, and voting on this recommendation stand to personally benefit. That raises serious conflict of interest concerns. Today's code of conduct.
Hi, it's me, it's the chair. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure you understand something, okay? This isn't like a parliament where people are immune from legal action. Making claims about people having a conflict of interest is something I'm not going to allow, and I encourage you not to say that, okay?
No, I appreciate that. I sent a message to, I know that there was a personal matter for Gary Miedema, but I sent a message to Tamara and to somebody
I'm sorry,
else.
I really would prefer it if you would address the specific issues rather than naming individuals, okay?
I just need to understand the process, and I'm still not clear. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We don't understand how we got to this point, and we have questions and they haven't been answered, and we don't know where to go. So that's what we're facing. Anyhow, those most affected, seniors, single women, residents on fixed incomes, and people for whom English is not a first language, should be supported in this process. And people will tell you, I spent weeks and weeks trying to get help to understand how to navigate what's going on, and it's produced what you're seeing right now. There was no two-way communication in this process. Sending out a notification does not mean a message of such great impact was received by those affected. Today you're being asked to vote on a recommendation that fundamentally alters how we manage and even keep or lose our homes, and it affects those who might have had the opportunity for affordable housing without this heritage listing, because if you know the little fourplexes, there's some things we could do without a heritage listing that would make it more accessible for other people. If we are speaking, well, I want to speak about what are the connections between people, but I guess this isn't the space that I'm allowed to ask that question, which is problematic. But I will also say the recommendation does not satisfy the legal test under Regulation 906. These are ordinary 1930s fourplexes. We're talking about 1/4 of one of them in this particular vote. These are not rare, unique, or early examples of a style. They were built as simple, functional housing for lower and mid-income folks without special materials, craftsmanship, or technical achievement. There's no historical or associative value. Talbot is already recognized through dozens of other designated lease-side properties, and there are apparently at least 150 others designed by him. Our modest units do not have a direct or unique connection to him, nor do they illustrate an underdocumented chapter of Leaside's history. Otherwise, I really think it would be called Talbotville and not Leaside. Contextual value. Bayview south of Eglinton is defined today, when you drive it, by mid-rise commercial and tower redevelopment. The Gerlach building defines our corner now, as does the Crosstown LRT. These fourplexes do not define the character of the corridor. They are not landmarks. They are crumbling, aging buildings that we as owners love and protect against the developers who continue to come knocking. In short, these homes fail to meet any of the 3 required tests under Ontario Regulation 906, and the broad strokes links that brought us here need specifics, and they do need to be interrogated. The fact that I'm telling you that I still have questions and we all still have questions means that we shouldn't have a vote that can't be appealed today. So these buildings, okay, so then as far as planning context, that also matters because planning policy pulls in opposite directions, as you just heard. From Mr. Thorne today, homes within 200 meters of a major transit hub are slated for density intensification. So why is this heritage designation, listing recommendation before us when zoning is going to indicate otherwise? Who is benefiting from this really? And intensification is already happening because affordable and accessible housing, we heard it's in the red zone. It needs to be a priority. Talbot himself believes believed that, as does our mayor and our premier. We as a bloc have resisted numerous lucrative developer offers in the past. I want people to know that, right? We're still standing. If this listing gets recommended, any talk that we seniors would turn our fourplex condo into a sixplex, which we have thought about in the future, to increase affordable housing.
Angie?
I'm done?
Angie?
Am I done?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's your time. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Angie? Nope, seeing none. Thank you for your deputation today. Next, I have Shufai Lin. Hi, I understand you're online. Can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you, but you're a bit faint. Can you make sure you're speaking clearly into your microphone?
How is this now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Housing Committee. I'm speaking on behalf of Sufei Lin, owner of the fourplex building at 1765 and 1765 Bayview Avenue, one of the contiguous buildings that's listed along with 1771 Bayview Avenue in the proposed inclusion on the Heritage Register. I recently found out there's an attempt to register 1747, 1751, 1759.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
If I heard you correctly, you said you're speaking on behalf of Sufei?
Yes.
Can I have your name, please?
Yes, Cindy Lee.
Cindy, what was your last name?
Lee, L-I.
Thank you very much. Okay, Cindy, you can continue now.
Yes, sorry, Sufei Lin, English is not good, so I'm speaking on behalf of her. So there was an attempt to register 8 contiguous buildings. One of it includes the 1771, our agenda today, as heritage, and I'm strongly against it for several reasons. So we're just ordinary landowners that rely on rental income to pay the mortgage and hopefully earn some passive income for retirement. And when I heard the attempt to register to designate our property as heritage building, I got really stressed and scared because maintaining the building would be such a huge burden and the task is beyond our ability. But considering the average income in Leaside is $260,000 a year according to the 2021 census, and these buildings were originally built for lower middle income families over 100 years ago, it seems that this heritage designation is an attempt to keep out lower and middle income people who's often newcomers to this country. I don't believe that the buildings meet the threshold of cultural heritage value or interest that justify long-term heritage protection under the Ontario Heritage Act. Additionally, this proposal goes against the major transit station area development under the Toronto's official plan, and there's no clear benefits that justifies the restriction or cost of a heritage designation. So yes, you'll notice that I keep mentioning designation instead of listing, because we know that after we're on the listing, we're just on the waiting list for the property to be considered as a designation. So we found a letter written by Gerald Kettle, Mr. Gerald Kettle, Jeff Kettle is one of the speakers today, and the voting members of the Toronto Preservation Board to the members of the North York Community Council with the Heritage Plan.
If I could ask you, I cautioned a previous deputant, if I could ask you to speak to the substance of the issue and not bring individuals into it, that would be helpful, okay?
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so with the letter found, it was CC'd back, so I quote, while obviously supportive listing the property, we note that the report is only for listing, not designation. This means that the matter will be revisited in 2 years by December 31st, 2026, or else the listed status will be lost. This being the case, and assuming council approves the listing, we request that NYCC recommend to City Council and the City Planning Division report back to the City Council on designation under Section 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act for the 8 listed property by November 2026, end quote. So hearing this, it's like super stressful to us. In our last meeting with the Toronto Preservation Board, PH 35.4 on Monday, September 22nd, we were clarified by the board that being listed on the heritage registration does not impose any restriction on the property owner except the requirement that the owner must give council at least 60 days notice of intention to demolish or remove a structure on the property. But from what we can see, these 8 contiguous buildings, which 177Y, 1 Bayview Avenue is a part of, was on the agenda for designation consideration back in 2024. That's why our current worries and stress with regards to maintaining the building as a heritage is a subject that we have to revisit again in the near future, which is super stressful. So I urge the member of the Planning and Housing Committee to reconsider the listing of 1771 Bayview Avenue as heritage registration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No? Thank you for your deputation. Kenneth Stacy. Kenneth, I understand you're online. Can you hear me?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Welcome, Kenneth. You've got 5 minutes. You can start as soon as you're ready.
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, councilors. I'm also from 1771 Bayview, which is a 4-plex. I am actually Angie Dornay's neighbor, upper neighbor. I'm speaking in opposition to the proposed heritage listing of the 2 condos within a 4-plex, which is on Bayview Avenue, just south of Eglinton, near the new subway station. To start, may I say that given the relative subjective nature of the recommendation for heritage, the burden of evidence should fall squarely on those who bring it forward. That has not happened yet. Instead, we have an inequitable process with little transparency and no meaningful consultation with those of us most directly affected. That being said, under Ontario Reg 96, property must meet at least one of the prescribed criteria for cultural heritage value or interest to merit designation. My unit, which is the upper right quadrant of 1771 Bayview, should not qualify. Firstly, OREG 96 requires that a property demonstrate physical, design, or architectural value. These buildings do not, realistically. They are built to be practical, not artistic. They do not show a high degree of technical achievement or innovation. And if anyone has argued otherwise, I respectfully ask that they specify how those claims apply to my unit in particular. Nothing about my upper unit, quadrant of 1771 Bayview, demonstrates exceptional representative design value. I only wish it did. My property value would be higher. Secondly, OREG 96 requires historical or associative value. Some have suggested that apply by a connection to Henry Howard Talbot, who was the builder developer. Unfortunately, Henry Talbot is also listed as the builder of over 150 other homes in Leaside on Donegal, Cameron, Besborough, and many more. Entire garden apartment complexes such as Kelvin Grove, Glenlevin, and Strath Avon are attributed to him, and they're already designated heritage. Now, these 4-plexes do not provide a unique or special link to Talbot. They are not early or rare within his body of work. They add nothing new to our understanding of Leaside's history that isn't already well documented in more representative properties. Third criteria is contextual value. A property must define, maintain, or support the character of its surroundings or be a landmark. These buildings do not. They do neither. Bayview south of Eglinton is a busy arterial corridor that has already been seen extensive redevelopment. The context here is mid-rise and commercial intensification, not modest utilitarian 4-plexes. These are not landmarks. Few residents identify them as visually or historically significant. The fact that so many neighbors have written in opposition confirms this. In fact, the phrase Talbot Quaz, suddenly used in letters of support, is a manufactured language, not a name the community has ever used. This points to another truth. I submit that this may not be entirely about heritage. It appears to be using heritage designation as a tool to block intensification. But this is just my opinion. That matters because these homes are sit within 200 meters of this major transit hub. Both provincial and municipal policy require intensification in precisely these locations. And intensification is already happening. 46-story tower has been approved nearby that will leave our homes in shadow. To freeze 2 condo units in a 4-plex as heritage while allowing towers across the street seems inconsistent, unfair, and a misuse of heritage tools. The integrity of the process also matters. This listing was advanced without clear evidence, with selective consultation. That undermines confidence not just in this recommendation, but in the fairness of the heritage system as a whole. So in closing, when measured against a test in OREG 96, these buildings fail in every count. They lack design or physical value, they lack historical or associative value, and they lack contextual value. Instead, they represent aging, modest housing, along an urban corridor where intensification is planned and required. Councillors, I respectfully urge you to not support the heritage listing at 1771 Bayview. If you cannot vote no, then at least advise how we can achieve some equity and inclusivity in this situation so owners can respond properly and collectively without feeling excluded. Heritage designation should be reserved for properties that clearly meet the provincial test, not for ordinary homes caught up in politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thanks so much. I'll go to the next deputant on the list, Jeff Cattell. See, I told you you were on here many times. Okay, Jeff, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Cattell. I'm, in this capacity, I'm co-president of the Leaside Residents Association. And I'm here to express the strong support for the staff recommendation that in consideration of the objection made under subsection 27.7 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the City Council continued to include the property at 1771 Bayview Avenue on the City of Toronto Heritage Register. In December 2024, City Council approved the heritage listing of 8 properties, 7 buildings, of the 10 residential quadruplex buildings affectionately known as the Talbot Quads. The 10 buildings were originally nominated for listing in 2011, that's a long time ago, by the North York Community Preservation Panel. 2 of these buildings, 1755 to 1757 and 1783 to 1785 have since been heritage designated in direct response to development applications. In the case of 1783-85, that will be incorporated as part of the 1779 to 1787 Bayview Development Scheme at the LRT station. One building that was not listed, 1779 to 81, unfortunately will be demolished as part of the same scheme. But that 1775 to 1757 was designated and continues to be right in the center of the block. As noted in the staff report, 1771 meets the criteria for listing and almost certainly for designation as well. Beyond the technical assessment, the Talbot Quads were and are an integral part of the fabric and history of the town of Leaside. They are a landmark. Together today, they're important to the community, to the whole community, for several reasons. They represent the second set of apartments associated with Henry Howard Talbot. The other is in Lower Bayview, the heritage designated Kelvin Grove, Glenlevin, and Strathaven apartments. And like the Talbot apartments and many of the single-family homes, the quadruplexes are good examples of the Georgian revival style. The buildings occupy a highly visible site on Bayview Avenue near the Eglinton corner, and they actually are sitting high above on the other side, on the east side. They sit above the Talbot Park, which is baseball and the school running field and so on, the Leaside High School. So that's important that they protect that in a reasonable way. They sit there in the dip of the Lost River Valley. The natural crossroads of Bayview at Eglinton marks the beginning of Bayview as Leaside's historic high street. The Talbot Quads are contemporaneous with the surrounding historic high street and the contiguous streets of single-family homes. The key thing is there an intact set of a certain architecture, a certain character that as a group of them, the importance is as a group. Individually, they're similar, not identical, but they have a common format. We note that 1771 Bayview is the southern duplex. 1773 Bayview is the northern duplex. In other words, they're double quads, they're double duplexes, which means that if this objection was upheld, it would create a ludicrous situation of having different parts of the same building under different regimes. We also note that the double duplexes are currently a favored form of gentle density and represent comfortable housing at a reasonable and affordable, relatively affordable price, and thus are an integral part of the Leaside housing mix. Thank you very much. You can see where I'm coming from. We're supported here by the community of Leaside. I write for Leaside Life, and whenever we write on this thing, we get support. We've never had any concerns.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions? No? Thanks so much. The final deputy and I have listed here is Savo Bozic. Savo, I understand you're online. Can you hear me?
My name is Savo Bozic, and I'm the owner of 1767-69 Bayview Avenue. My ask is simple. Please remove 1771 Bayview from the Heritage Register and do a proper site evaluation. At the Toronto Preservation Board meeting on Monday, it was noted that several owners weren't notified of the Heritage Register, including myself, and some of us couldn't speak. That was not meaningful consultation for a decision that affects financing, permits, and resale. The record is incomplete. During the Monday meeting, staff confirmed listing is not a designation. It doesn't maintain, repair, or protect the building. However, it does add a 60-day demolition hold and extra studies if there is an application, which adds cost and delay for small owners. And because listings expire after 2 years, it creates uncertainty for everyone with no lasting outcome. The legal test, Ontario Regulation 906, fails here. First and foremost, based on design and physical aspects. 1771 is a modest 1930s fourplex, functional but not ornamental. No rare materials, no exceptional craftsmanship, no technical innovation. Integrity is compromised by later replacements and alterations like vinyl windows, siding, etc. This is a standard 1930s fourplex used by many builders across Midtown. There are multiple similar examples on Avenue Road. So 1771 isn't rare or exceptional under the 906 design test. The historical aspects fail here too. The Talbot Galbert story is already represented in the area. This already modified 1771 Bayview adds no new insight. The intact row idea is already broken by demolition of the houses to the north. The 1771 is not a landmark, and the fractured set no longer defines the character of the area. Bayview at Eglinton is an LRT corridor. We need more homes, mid-rise and gentle density. On the main street next to transit, freezing short, aging buildings on Bayview works against our housing goals. If council wants stronger heritage outcomes, focus designation on intact interior Leaside streets where character is richest, not at the main road that's supposed to carry growth. If council truly believes 1771 is exceptional and must be preserved at public standards, the fair route is public acquisition or funded conservation, not placing unfunded obligations on small owners. Bottom line, listing here is a placeholder that adds cost and uncertainty without delivering conservation. 1771 fails on the 906 criteria on design, association, and context. Its story is already covered by designated comparators, and Bayview needs to deliver housing by the LRT. please remove 1771 Bayview from the Heritage Register and do a proper site evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, does anyone have any questions of staff? No? I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried, and I believe that completes our work for the day. Well done, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.